vocal range, timbre and tessitura. These are some of the terms I will be talking about today. I understand you had questions from yesterday. You were like, what did he say here? What does that even mean? What is legato? What is staccato? Calm your nerves. These terms will begin to reveal themselves as the 20-day podcast marathon continues to progress. Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome to the Making Musical Quantum Leaps podcast. And it is I, the gift that keeps on giving. My name is Worship, and today is day 2 of the 20-day podcast marathon. And it promises to be another deep dive, quantum leap in... Oh my God, I said 2 opposite stuff. Okay, let me pick one. It's going to be a deep dive into knowledge. And please make sure you take advantage of this opportunity. Yes, I know. Opportunity comes more than once. But please let this opportunity be the one that will transform your musical, vocal journey. Alright? So, let's make some progress. First up on our list is vocal range. So what is vocal range? I'm sure you must have heard this term before, so it shouldn't be a new term. Even if you're a beginner, you just might not know how to define it, but I'm sure you must have heard of it somewhere. So what is vocal range? Vocal range, it refers to the span of pitches a singer can produce, from the lowest to the highest note. I think I should rephrase that, or rephrase. From the lowest grunt, that's from the lowest, like the lowest possible sound, till the squeakiest, highest note a singer can possibly squeak out. That's what I'm talking about. While everyone has a theoretical range, the useful range for singing is more specific. Emphasis on useful. So, there are many factors that influences a singer's range. One of it is training. Vocal range can expand significantly. Of course, if the person trains, it is definitely going to expand. So if the person trains and uses good and proper technique and exercise, of course, it will expand. Another factor that affects a person's range is the person's natural voice type. Some people's voices can naturally go higher than some. Some people just have wider vocal ranges than some people. So it's not my fault. You can ask God. It's not my fault. Another is the musical style. So for example, in classical music, classical singing focuses on that part that I call the useful range. Notes which have consistent timbre and have strong projection. And the reason for this is because they are singing without amplification. What I mean by amplification is they don't use microphones. So they are singing and they are only going to rely on the resonance in the hall, the reverb in the hall, or in layman term, the echo. I don't want to use that, but just for layman, the echo, the reverb in the hall. So they are only going to rely on that without amplification. And guess what? There's an orchestra playing. Their voices have to rise higher than the orchestra. So definitely they have to stay within that useful range. That place that has consistent, timbre. I guess we'll define that later. Consistent timbre. Okay? So another is a choral setting, another type of musical style that can affect somebody's the range a particular singer will sing in is the choral setting. So for the choral setting, as long as you can blend the sound together, then that range is acceptable. That is the range we'll sing. I really hope that made sense. So you can go as long as it blends together, or as long as it blends together, then we should sing within that range. For contemporary singing, there is amplification. So we have leverage to use all parts of our vocal range. So not just the one with consistent pitch. You can also, or timbre, you can also go for the very breathy, because now you don't need to be as loud as you should. You don't need to project as much as you need to in classical singing, where your voice has to rise higher than the orchestra. No, you can totally whisper and it will be picked because there is amplification. So it gives us a more wider range to explore. Okay. But for the classical, again, going back to the classical, for the men, they don't allow them to use falsetto. Why? Because it will not rise higher than the orchestra. Unless, of course, you are a male with a really strong falsetto enough oh God. Okay, go back to my podcast on registers if you want to get a proper definition of what vocal registers are. I'm not going to teach it in this series. It's going to take our time. So go back to our podcast on vocal registers and listen to it. Yeah? So moving on. Extended range. Extended range is notes above and notes below your comfortable range. They are accessible to you, but they are not necessarily convenient. You might have you might have to do a little more work to be able to assess that part of your range. And the tone you might get there might not really be desirable, but it's still part of your range. Next up on our list is tessitura. So what is vocal tessitura? Now, I'm going to use an analogy from John Henney. John Henney is a well-respected voice teacher and I love him so much. So he defines vocal range as this, a ladder. Then he defines tessitura as the part of the ladder where you spend most of your time. So from the bottom of the ladder to the extreme end of the ladder is full of rungs. Yeah, rungs is like where you put your legs and all that. But where you spend most of your time on that ladder, maybe you climbed the ladder to do something, the place where your leg stays, where you spent most of your time, you climbed up and you climbed down. But that part of the ladder where you stood to do the work, where you stayed and did everything you needed to do, your reason for climbing the ladder, that is your tessitura. Same thing with singing. The part of your voice where you spend most of your time singing, it's more comfortable, it's where your voice shines, that is your tessitura. You can also call it your sweet spot, where your voice is most comfortable, convenient, and is flexible. That is your tessitura. There's also a tessitura for songs in general. So for a song, the place where that singer spends most of their time singing comfortably, where their voice shines, their voice is free, that is their tessitura. Their vocal range might be covered in that song. They might hit a very high note in that song, but they don't stay there. That is not their tessitura. Their tessitura is where they spend most of their time singing. Now you're going to ask, how does this affect my repertoire? You would need to pick a song that sits, the tessitura of that song is convenient for you, is also close to your tessitura or is the same with your own vocal tessitura. Now, I hope you understand what I'm saying. The tessitura for the song means where that singer spent most of your time singing. Tessitura for your voice, where you spend most of your time singing because that place is convenient for you. So if you're picking that song, you pick that song and ensure that tessitura is also within yours. And if it is not within yours, change the key. Whoever told us that it is wrong to change the key of a song? I know you want to, it's just a matter of pride anyway, but it is not wrong to change the key of the song. Okay? So if it's not seated, you can always transpose, change the key so it can be seated within your tessitura. Now, when Mariah Carey sings, she doesn't sing on the whistle every time. There's a place where her voice sits. We call it, there's another definition again. Another part of your range. Tessitura is also part of your range. There's another part of your range. I learned this from my mentor, Mama Josari. She calls it spotlight. The spotlight range. That place you just go and just touch it and just briefly shine and come all the way back to your tessitura because that is where you're most comfortable. That's where your voice will shine. You can just use that spotlight range to just wow the audience and just demonstrate vocal dexterity, but you are still going to come back to your vocal tessitura. I hope that was made clear. If there are any more questions, you could please just ask, alright? Final one on my list today is vocal timbre. Now, the good news about vocal timbre is that it can be manipulated. It can be changed. Yes, it can be changed. Okay, let's define it. What is vocal timbre? Vocal timbre is the unique quality of a person's voice. When you hear it, you're like, this is this person singing. This is that person singing. Or that is English. That is that person singing. Okay. Did you describe a person's timbre with words like it is bright, it is dark, it is husky? You use colors. It is, sometimes we say somebody's vocal timbre is white, it's bright. Then you say things like is shrill, is piercing. Those are words people use to define vocal timbre. It can be manipulated. Now, how does this affect your repertoire? Now, you want to pick certain songs because you want to work on achieving a particular timbre that person used in that song. For example, the person was breathy. You'll be like, okay, I am listening to this song. I want to sing this song because I want to experiment sounding breathy. So you pick a song like, okay, did she sound breathy in that song? That every night in my dream song. I'm thinking of a song where the person sang really breathy. I can't place my hand on that now. Okay, songs by Brandy. She uses that quality a lot. So there was this time I was learning to be breathy, and I was like, hoo. Then I listened to Brandy. I was like, wow, that is what I want. I started to listen to her. And the moment I began to listen to her, I began to experiment singing with that breathiness. Same thing with nasality. You want to introduce a little nasality in your singing, you get singers who do that. You get songs that has that in it. You don't want to work on singing with breathiness, and you go and look for singers who never sing with breathiness. It will not work. You look for songs that actually have those qualities, and you begin to score them. As the podcast progresses, we'll begin to make song suggestions, and we begin to experiment on songs ourselves, which brings the talk of Band Lab again. We're going to have further discussions on our community, on how we're going to get the application and begin to experiment with it. But for today, I think this brings us to a close on this particular episode. It was amazing talking with you on this particular topic. So if you have questions, as usual, you can ensure you comment, ensure you share, ensure you ask your questions on the community. And if you want to join the community, you can always reach out to our mail, or you can reach out to my DM. It's readily accessible. All right, bye.